So I stand here before you today as a representation of a typical Florida lawyer. I'm a third-generation lawyer from Indian River County, and in the years before me, as well as during my 22 years in practice, change has impacted the profession, and the Florida Bar has led the way in sculpting that change. That change is now more accelerated and more pervasive than ever before in our long history. The pace of change can sometimes cause fear rather than action. We need to rise above the fear. Non-decisions are still decisions. They are just guaranteed to be bad ones. We need to once again lead the way and be the architects of this change so that we may better serve the public and benefit our members and protect the traditional core values of our profession. Collectively, my grandfather and my father and myself have witnessed many changes in the world at large. Many of the changes were and are being driven by innovation and waves of advancing technology. The practice of law, our beloved profession, was and is being carried along these currents rather rapidly. I grew up in Vero Beach, loving the water, swimming, surfing, skiing, fishing, and anyone who has spent time around the waters knows that it can be a very powerful and occasionally destructive force. In lightning quick moments, floodwaters can sometimes devastate or destroy entire communities. And as well, slowly, over time, water is powerful enough to carve deep canyons even in rock and stone. Traditionally, the bar has been in a very strong position to withstand the effects such as these. It's a bulwark against the powerful waves of change, standing firm in the protection of the public and preserving the highest standards of professionalism and civility. But the water is powerful. Water finds a way into crevices and can carve out new tributaries when it finds an immovable object. The legal profession is facing these powerful forces of change, and the bar cannot simply be an immovable object observing as change carves new paths around our profession. The question as to how to navigate these changes is at the forefront of my mind and will be the focus of the upcoming year. Change is not new to Florida lawyers or new to the Florida Bar. In 1949, the year my grandfather passed away, the Supreme Court of Florida gave the nod to the bar officials to proceed in forming a unified bar. The four leaders of the bar and the Florida Supreme Court at that time believed that only through a unified organization could all Florida lawyers receive uniform education on changes in the law and legal procedures. Additionally, a unified bar would pave way for a uniform system of discipline for unethical lawyers and to assure the public that only those with the highest ethical standards would be allowed to practice. The Florida Supreme Court opinion, which created the Florida Bar, stated in part, and I quote, "Growing populations and changing conditions necessarily give rise to social and economic complexities that require wisdom and discretion to cope with. The bar should be the first sector of the population to comprehend this and order its house to meet such emergencies." Since 1949, the Florida Bar has grown from 3,758 members to, as you heard, over 100,000. And the population of the state of Florida has likewise grown from almost 2.7 million at that time to almost 21.7 million residents currently. With this explosion in growth, the court properly predicted that we would face changing social and economic complexities, such as educating and assisting our members and improving their overall health and wellness, promoting diversity and inclusion at all levels of the legal and justice systems, continuing to work with the court, the legislature, and the governor to ensure a fully funded judicial branch, and determining the best strategies to address online and alternative legal service providers and help members adapt to this ever-changing legal environment, which will be the primary focus of my remarks. Fast forward from 1949, 20 years to 1970, when my father was admitted to the Florida Bar. By then, the legal profession had grown to about 12,000 active members and 6.7 million Floridians. The 1970s solidified the Florida Bar as a national leader in applying innovative technology to assist the public and its members. Those visionary leaders established the interest on lawyer trust accounts, programs to fund legal aid. Cameras entered the courtroom in Florida in the 1970s as well. Further, in response to the 1977 U.S. Supreme Court ruling legalizing lawyer advertising, Florida's first lawyer advertising rules were adopted. While we can now look at those Florida firsts with enormous pride, skeptics initially greeted them both reluctantly. As the world was growing and changing, the legal profession found that it too had to look for new ways to serve the public and its members. In the 22 years since I was admitted, cameras in the courtroom, iota, and advertising rules are just a standard part of our profession. Now, 70 years later since inception of the Florida Bar as a unified establishment, the Florida Bar is called again, once again, to be a leader in shaping the practice of law for both the lawyers and the public. We are well positioned to successfully ride this wave because of the work, studies, and discussions that we have put in the last decade. Together with the court and other justice partners, the Bar has started focusing more on access to justice, particularly for the growing number of Floridians who don't qualify for legal aid and at the same time don't turn to lawyers to resolve their legal problems. In this milieu, technology has been playing a central role in how people find and procure legal services. With that increasing reliance, concerns naturally arose that these new ways of doing business would threaten the traditional practice of law. But there is an inescapable fact which the legal profession must face. Today, there are billions of dollars, that's billions with a B, worth of unmet legal needs in the United States. There are millions of people and small businesses who can afford to pay lawyers but who choose not to. Legal technology companies are shaping the legal marketplace. These companies do not have to comply with regulations which are meant for lawyers, such as advertising, conflicts of interest, and fee-sharing rules. And this lack of regulation puts lawyers at a competitive disadvantage. If we believe that those in need of legal services are better served by lawyers, then we need to make sure that our lawyers are well positioned to both get and do the work that these Floridians need. We also need to recognize that not every legal solution requires a lawyer. And where lawyers are unable or unwilling to serve that legal need, we must assure that the public can find those legal services that are properly regulated for their protection. So here we are now in 2019, almost a fifth of the way through the 21st century, and the overarching question for the Florida Bar is, how do we find ways of working with these other legal service providers in the broader marketplace to protect our traditional core values while striving to provide access to justice for all? As we move forward as the architects of our legal future, we must bring these online companies under our umbrella, providing the regulatory framework for these ancillary legal services and leveling the playing field for our members. The public we serve and the Florida Bar has a profound constitutional duty to protect, rely on us to provide a majority of the legal services and to regulate the greater legal marketplace, not only to ensure the access to justice for all, but to assure that the public is protected in the process. Working with companies that agree to high standards through voluntary regulation, I believe we can preserve the core values of our profession and provide this higher level of protection that the public needs. Rest assured that the floodwaters of evolving technology in the legal marketplace are and have been carving paths around us, but we have not ignored these waves of change. We have studied, we have strategized, and we have learned. Now it's time to take our knowledge and make tough decisions that will shape our practice for decades to come. In my opinion, the discussion of these alternative and online legal service providers and their impact of our profession is the most important discussion we will likely have in the next century. The best solution in this legal marketplace is lawyers plus technology. It's neither lawyers or technology. Computers and advanced technologies are important tools, but only humans can be empathic, sympathetic, and civil. I will close by sharing my favorite quote, which I have to confess I stole from Mayan Downs, which expresses the meaning of lawyers and judges and the rule of law in a civilized society. This quote is from John William Davis, who served as Solicitor General of the United States under President Woodrow Wilson. Mr. Davis stated, "True, we build no bridges, we raise no towers, we construct no engines. We paint no pictures unless as amateurs for our own principal amusement. There is little of all that we can do which the eye of man can see. But we smooth out difficulties, we relieve stress, we correct mistakes, we take up other men's burdens, and by our efforts, we make possible the peaceful life in a peaceful state." It is very important work that we lawyers do. I'm grateful to be a Florida lawyer. I'm humbled and grateful for all the support that I have in this room, for all the kind words, all the words of confidence, and I look forward to working in the year ahead, and I promise not to let your gratitude and your feelings of confidence for me down in the coming year. I thank you for your time and attention. Thank you. And according to my timed agenda, we are adjourned 3 minutes early. Okay.